All right, visuals coming in from the Prime Minister's visit to the United States. That's Elon Musk with his family, who's about to meet the Prime Minister. And this is obviously going to be a very important meeting between Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, and the Prime Minister, who has spoken to Elon Musk in the past as well about investing in India, about manufacturing in India. And this is a meeting that India is looking forward to. The Prime Minister has met a number of dignitaries, and there he is, Elon Musk with his family entering the White House. He's arrived at the Blair House to meet Prime Minister Modi, and an important conversation will ensue on the back of the Prime Minister's meeting with a host of other important members of the American administration. Let's talk about this. On our show at this point in time is Ambassador Manju Seth, former diplomat, Group Captain V.N. Jha, defense expert, with us on the show. Ray Locker, senior journalist, also joins us on the program. Professor Rohan Gunaratna, Middle East Affairs expert, joins us on the show as well. Mr. Alok Mehta, editorial director of India News, with us on the show as well. Thank you everyone for being a part of this conversation at this particular hour. Ambassador Manju Seth, I'll begin with you, ma'am. What significance does this trip hold for you? You know, this is obviously a new America in ways, a new America in terms of its outlook. It's an America that's looking out for itself. It's cutting down on all extravagant expenses that it thought it has made over the past few years, and Donald Trump is leading that. He's exemplified what he said by deporting a number of illegal immigrants, and some of them happen to be Indians as well. What do you think is going to come out of this bilateral?
The optics haven't been great, especially during the deportation of illegal Indians back to India. But all said and done, this visit is very significant. And both America and India understand the importance of this partnership and this relationship. And it is a strategic partnership, and it's a global strategic partnership in the sense that it encompasses many elements of interest to both sides. And the main thing being that yes, tariffs are being talked, and he's just, I think, implementing whatever he said as part of his campaign. During his campaign, he said he would make America great again, and cut tariffs and stop illegal immigration. But those issues are both of great concern to the U.S. General public, because the fact is that the economy is not doing very well, and the fact that a lot of people want jobs, but a lot of immigrants have come in, and a lot of illegal immigrants have come in and taken the jobs away from the locals. So I think that has been a concern for everyone, and he spoke about it, and he has taken action. So yes, it is a new America in that sense, and it is a new. The second term can be looked as a new beginning also for the new America, because they are not. I mean, it will not be business as usual as it was. And President Trump is, of course, very rightly everybody says, very transactional, and many of these actions that he has taken, especially regarding tariff, I believe, are also to strengthen its own negotiating, power. He wants to negotiate. He wants America to be negotiating from a position of strength. So if you look at what he did with Canada and Mexico, he imposed the tariffs, and then now he has put it on hold for a month while negotiations go on. So I think that is also one aspect of this whole, of his announcements. And as far as India is concerned, yes, the trade balance being heavily in favor of India, I think India has already taken some steps, and there are some items that we can, straight away reduce tariffs on, which will not greatly harm or impact the local industry, and I think or local manufacturing, and on their side as well, he cannot impose too many high tariffs because it will also impact the American public. The goods will get more expensive, whatever they were used to. We export pharmaceuticals and other parts, and machine and some other elements that we export to them. They will all become more expensive, and thereby they will, steel, aluminium, all that we are exporting already will become more expensive for the local people, and I think that he would not like to have a great impact. So I feel while some negotiations, hard negotiations, will need to be done by both sides, and of course India would need to address their concerns. They also would likewise address our concerns, because for both sides the partnership is very important, and it is a very significant partnership for many reasons. I think, given the geopolitical situation that has evolved across the world. Rishabh.
All right, Mr. Salvatore Babones, American sociologist and associate professor at the University of Sydney, is joining us. Sir, appreciate you joining us. First up, sir, this will be the first meeting between Prime Minister Modi and Trump in his second administration. What, according to you, are the big ticket expectations from this meeting?
The biggest expectation is that there will be a reciprocal invitation back to India. I would be shocked if there's not an invitation for Trump to come visit India, and that's likely to be the biggest outcome of this meeting. I mean, everyone's talking about trade and tariffs, but the fact is that U.S.-India trade is not that large. There are some symbolic trade issues, and Trump may push Mr. Modi for some, again, symbolic concessions on tariffs, but I don't think those will be very important in the overall scheme of the economic relationship. Similarly, the defense relationship is unlikely to be affected by a single meeting. There will certainly be a reaffirmation of the defense relationship. But if you're looking for something big to come out of the meeting, it's going to be a Donald Trump visit to India. Mark my words.
All right. Well, Donald Trump has imposed tariffs, and they're likely to feature in the meeting. How can the two leaders strike a balance in this trade issue?
Trade with India simply is not a major issue in the United States. Immigration is actually a bigger issue, and that's much more difficult to solve because within the Trump coalition there are people like Elon Musk and the other tech billionaires who very much want increased Indian access to the U.S. labor market, while there are economic nationalists who want to see lower levels of foreigners working in the United States. So that's likely to be the most contentious issue. Actual merchandise trade, again, it will be on the agenda, and there may be some announcement regarding one or two products. But really, the U.S.-India trade is scattered among hundreds of categories. There are no big ticket items. There are some sensitive agricultural issues that are sensitive in both the U.S. and India, and there may be some announcement on one or two of those. But whatever it is, it really won't be an economically important takeaway. Immigration, investment, the defense relationship, these are really much more important for the future of U.S.-India relations.
All right, Donald Trump has spoken to both Zelensky and Putin in his push to restore peace. What role can Prime Minister Modi and India play to help out his push?
Mr. Modi may be able to convince Donald Trump that India can play a role. I doubt that Donald Trump is very aware that India has such strong relations with both sides in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and that India could really play a very useful role as an honest broker. I think it's telling that Donald Trump has turned to Saudi Arabia to host his first meeting with Vladimir Putin. Now, obviously, anyone familiar with India I don't think that Donald Trump would have been very aware that India could have played the role of honest broker in the relationship between Russia and Ukraine. It would be surprising to anyone who really knows the region that a meeting like the Trump-Putin summit couldn't have happened in India. That said, the Trump team is much more focused on the Middle East, and it's maybe not surprising that they would have turned to Saudi Arabia.
Right. Well, immigration is another key issue. While India has supported Trump's bid to push out illegal immigrants, there are concerns on how the immigrants have been treated. Do you expect any progress and consensus on this?
This is a highly performative issue for Donald Trump, sending illegal immigrants back home on military transports in handcuffs. Those pictures have been taken, those newsreels have been played. I don't think it will be very important for the U.S. side going forward to continue to use military means to repatriate illegal immigrants from the United States. So I expect that to die down. I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Modi raised it with Donald Trump, is one thing that India wants from this relationship, and I would not be surprised if Donald Trump gave it to him. Donald Trump and his team have made their point, and going forward, they're just going to want to extradite and repatriate illegal immigrants. I don't think they're going to be concerned to send them in military transport.
What do you think can happen today which will set the agenda for the next 4 years between India and the United States?
The big agenda-setting issue is going to be, can Narendra Modi and Donald Trump return to the sort of very personal relationship they seem to have had during Trump's first term? There doesn't seem to have been much evidence of contact between Narendra Modi and Donald Trump during Trump's term out of office, and that would not be surprising given the protocols of Indian diplomacy. If there is a return to the kind of bonhomie that characterized Trump's first term, that will really reflect very positively on the future of U.S.-India ties. And like I said at the beginning, I strongly suspect that a public invitation from Narendra Modi for Donald Trump to visit India will be the star item coming out of this
All right, sir, appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. In fact, it is going to be a defining moment for both the countries, and what's going to come out of it is going to be extremely interesting because there are a variety of topics that both of these leaders will converse upon. Mr. Ray Locker, senior journalist with us on the show. Mr. Locker, what do you think is going to be the central focus for both these leaders? And are these agendas going to converge, or do you think that there is perhaps going to be some friction as well, considering the fact that Donald Trump does feel that a lot of countries, including India, have exercised this tariff plan, which has not benefited the Americans, and is likely, to keep his stance because this is what he promised to the American people?
Well, I think what's going to happen is Modi is going to play up to Trump in all the ways that he has in the past. He's going to push every button he can. And Trump's going to come away with a feeling that Modi likes me, so I don't need to worry about India. I mean, Trump is very transactional, as we've discussed. He has personal feelings that transcend any kind of grand strategy. So if he feels like the leader of a foreign country is friendly, then he thinks that that country is okay with him, and he doesn't worry about him. If he senses that there's some friction, then he really focuses in on the things he doesn't like, and he starts needling that leader. Like if it's Justin Trudeau, it's we're going to make Canada the 51st state, we're going to put tariffs on you, etc. And Modi knows that. And so he's very skilled at dealing with Trump. It was very wise of him to be there in the first place, so early. And I think that's the biggest thing. The relationship between the United States and India is only going to get stronger. It really doesn't matter who's president. There were so many ties between the two countries that are getting deeper and stronger. We have more and more Indian Americans, so that Indian diaspora here has greater and greater influence. You have more people of Indian descent in the U.S. political, economic, governmental systems. And so just by the nature of that, the relationship is going to get deeper.
You're absolutely right, sir. And let me also rope in Dr. V.N. Jha into this conversation. Dr. Jha, it's important to understand that this is not about sale, purchase, or transactions when it comes to the Indian and American bilateral, which is about to take place. Both these leaders are hungry, are, in fact, for the lack of a better word, desperate to make their respective countries great again. And that has been the crowning glory for their popularity as well as their success as leaders as well. Do you think that problems like tariffs, problems like immigration are going to in fact form the agenda of the conversation between the Prime Minister and Donald Trump, or do you think there is a wider lens to be studied when both these leaders are going to get together and discuss progress?
Thank you very much, Vineet. Look, both Modi and Trump, they are very, very pro-nation. Actually, many people had opined when Trump came with his slogan, "Make America Great Again," that he had taken the slogan out of Modi. Modi was the one who had said India First policy, and then thereafter many other leaders came forward. So it starts from there, and both are actually having a very good chemistry, and that chemistry also is going to reflect somewhere. Now, when the two world leaders are meeting, and that too, the biggest democracy in the world and the oldest democracy in the world, whole plethora of issues are on the table. Only problem is that this is only a 1.5 day business meeting between both of them. So there will be limited things on the table, and that, in my view, are 7 areas. One is the trade, second investment, defense cooperation, security, including financial security, human resources, Indo-Pacific, and the global peace. And lastly, the last thing was that gentlemen just spoke about is invitation to come to India. Now, trade have already been talked of. I'll only hint you 2 more things. Very few people have talked about it. One is that when Trump came to the office, much before that, he had talked very strongly about the BRICS currencies. You know, BRICS transaction is in the respective currencies, Indian currencies, Russian currency, Chinese currency. Trump had said very clearly that I want this to change. I want this to happen in the dollars, which I don't think many of the leaders of the BRICS country are keen for it, and it is unlikely to happen. So that is one. Secondly, Trump is going to touch on to the energy sources, the fuel for India that India is right now buying from Russia or Iran. Both are, contrary to US thought process that they would like to have it. So that also may be touched. Investment is a very big thing that very few people are talking today. India stands at about $65 to $67 billion investment plan, mainly fintech, e-commerce, Solar Global Alliance, high-tech, semiconductor, healthcare, US-India initiative on critical emerging issue are the ones which are on the table right now, mostly doing the things. India will surely like US to come forward with the semiconductor and the lithium resources that we have here to do more of an investment in that, take it forward so that we can be a global leader in the coming years. Leaving that here, defense cooperation is the one which is going to be very crucial, though people are saying that it won't be talked. One thing is going to be talked. Modi will touch upon GE 414 because the memorandum of understanding was signed a couple of years back and hardly any progress has happened. India is insisting that the entire OEM machine cannot come here. There has to be an element of TOT, and I'm sure he is going to insist onto it. He will make a deal with this, because there is one thing that I would draw your attention and all your viewers' attention is Modi's visit in France to the engine factory. That engine factory of France is the one going to give the jet engine in the coming days. That was, I think, it was Safran and HL are going to make an engine which in subsequent year is going to provide engine to AMCA as well as to the second the LCA Mark II. That will be very highly efficient engine having, I think, 114 odd kilonewton of the thrust power. Thrust power is the one right now which is lacking in the cavalry engine. So India has got an alternative. It is today in a position, and today's India is entirely different. We are going to be the 3rd largest economy in another couple of years. And so when you look at the bulk, the volume of the trade and the entire bit of investment, defense cooperation purchases, it makes a lot of sense. And Trump is a businessman. You know, you go to a big bazaar, there they take interest only 1%, but yet they make so much of volume of it that they always end up making more money than anyone else. So when you put the tariff, when you put the volume of the trade, even with a lesser tariff, with the like of volume that India is buying from US, it is going to be huge. So Trump knows that. So he will be very crucial that even if lesser benefit is coming out of the G414 or maybe MQ9, either B or C version, whatever India takes. Now, if India is asking for TOT to be given, I think they will think about it. And so are the 120 odd, 112 odd, MRCA that India has floated the global tender, or any other defense issues. So defense tie is very good with USA. There is a strategic partnership, and US must know one thing, that when the Houthis started striking the global shipping in the Gulf of Aden, India was the sole country which came as a savior, Indian Navy, which came as a savior for many, and it protected so many of the ships there. So US knows about this. So today, when there is a vacuum of the powers in the Arabian Sea, in the Indian Ocean, because USA has almost withdrawn, China is trying to occupy the space, and defense strategies say that no place can remain without the power. So these powers are going to be there. Right now, India is exercising its power. So US will take note of it, and US should come forward along with the India with more of the defense cooperation, strategic defense cooperation, especially taking the Navy also into account, because right from the Gulf of Aden to the Malacca Strait is the one which India can rule about it. Sorry, India has also gone to the South China Sea with its own fleet at a time when it was required. So India has got a big leverage here in this. I think US will do good if they take note of this defense. Last, only few things
I'll come back to you, sir. Let me rope in Professor Gunaratna as well into this conversation. Professor Gunaratna, Donald Trump has also ambitiously spoken about ending the war in Ukraine, as well as turning Gaza into a tourist spot. Do you think all of these assumptions, for the lack of a better word, are possible, considering that the entire world has been hoping for such an outcome?
President Trump is a very sensational leader. Sometimes his threats and his language has been taken literally. What is important to understand is Trump is a pacifist, and he has already built a very good relationship with Putin, and it is very likely that the Ukraine war will end. With regard to the developments in the Middle East, it's much more complex. Although he has a good relationship with Netanyahu, what is important is for Trump to build an equally good relationship with the Arab leaders. If he can do that, certainly he can restore peace in the Middle East. I believe that Trump's call to relocate the Palestinians from Gaza to Egypt and Jordan may not work, but Trump will be in a position to get Hamas to surrender, because Hamas launched one of the most brutal terrorist attacks. In fact, it's the worst attack after 9/11. And if Hamas surrenders, certainly Gaza can be restored. The peace and security in Gaza can be restored, and both Israel and the Palestinians can live in harmony, in coexistence. So it is good in many ways that President Trump has come to power. It is very good that he is engaging these leaders. It is also very good. Sometimes he threatens terrorist groups, saying that all hell will break loose, because when you deal with terrorists, you have to be very tough, and also you have to ensure that there is no violence. If a group engages in violence, that group should be dismantled. So I believe that Trump's leadership will see very significant changes that previous leaders could not do. For example, restoring peace between Europe and Russia, restoring peace in the Middle East. So the Indian partnership with the United States is equally important. India can play a more global role than the typical regional role it has played in the past.
All right, valid point, sir. Mr. Alok Mehta, your expectation, sir, of this meeting, besides all the posturing and all the jingoism that we have seen, do you think that India and the United States are set out for a course which is going to define both the nations, in a multiple number of ways over the next 4 to 5 years?
Vineet, basically it's for long-term relations, strategical relations with United States. Now India is developed in such a way, and that's why Prime Minister Narendra Modi always talk about the Viksit Bharat, developed India in 47. But this agreement, what they are doing with the American administration and Trump administration especially, is for up to 2035, to 2035. It means 10 years. Like Mrs. Gandhi did with Russia, Soviet Union at that time for 20 years, but already we had good relations in the last 10, 15 years too. That's why in that sense, I think this is a very important chapter for the Indo-US relations when Prime Minister is talking with President Trump. I think basic thing, but just now our guest also talked about the world peace, because the Trump is a businessman. He doesn't want just wastage of energy for other things, but to strengthen the country. Same thing with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We are fighting with terrorism. That's why our agenda is just United States should also help when they want good relations with economic relations. They want strategic relations. They want to sell the defense. They want to do the defense deals. So it's necessary that they also support, like in Bangladesh, what happened in the Biden regime also, some extent behind the curtain. Everybody knows, and it was alleged by Sheikh Hasina herself, that the Americans were also involved in some extent. China is already eyeing with the Pakistan and Pakistan and Bangladesh, or even the Maldives. That's why in the whole region, India is playing a very important role to counter China, but without fighting with China. Because now our border is peaceful now, with China also, and China understood. Now the Russia and United States very close now with India. And India is very close to Russia. We have a very good relations with Putin. And yesterday, President Trump also spoke to Putin. And they are very hopeful that in Ukraine there will be some peaceful talk start. So in that sense, I think now India is emerging, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in third term. Remember, it's very rare that Indian Prime Minister continues. I think it's the 8th visit to the United States, and the personal relations with Trump, earlier president also with Barack Obama or Biden also, we tried our best. But I think the best relations we have with the Trump, because he wants big market. Elon Musk, now the second advisor, first advisor to the President Trump, and he is now meeting with the Prime Minister Modi. So he also looking for this visa problem and other thing. Elon Musk is a very capable person. He is a more businessman than even Trump. That's why I think for more investment, India is also, especially the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and as Jai Shankar insisted, that when we are dealing with the European countries, you have other relations. Now, same thing. We also you should also give $100 billion dollar investment in India, because we want economic relations, that they should come industry, either defense, they come here, or for car, or Tesla, they should also manufacture in India. So we will also get the employment. With AI, we are leading in the AI the campaign, and that's why I think this is a very historical moment for India and US, that it will go in a long way. for the world, not only for India and United States. It will going to affect the Asian countries, European countries, African countries, and this is the right time for India to emerge in like a superpower. With France, our relations is best relations. You see, in every crisis, France was our partner in nuclear energy. We are also talking with for nuclear plants with the France, and we are also talking with the United States. Trump also wants that we should be, since Manmohan Singh days, they were also trying to sell their nuclear plants. Now we have to choose from United States or the France. They are the both competitor. So I think this kind of relations, and especially for the South China, we also want to strengthen our navy. So Scorpio from France and some helicopter also from France, and the same thing the jet from United States. So we are in a negotiating position. We are not just begging or asking. Even we are strengthening the United States economic power also, because when we have a good relations in comparison to China, they want to decrease relations with trade relations with China. Even President Trump also wants a normal relation with China because he doesn't want to fight. He thinks that if you do waste your time, only the problem is Iran. Still, the Trump has some reservation with Iran, and we also have a good relation with Iran. So, like Russia, we have to balance, and I think Trump will also give some indication for our fuel, our oil, major importer we are from, but United States can't help because they have no control on the private companies. But in Russia, they can give some rate or some change with the Indian capacity, or even the Gulf countries also we can bargain. But the problem is, with Iran also, earlier also, is a good fuel supplier for us. That's why, on this sense, I think that Trump also knows how our limitations are our demand, especially to counter, especially in the Kashmir region. Last point about it, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Since then, they are just sending terrorists and all. So, like in Israel, what they did, if needed, then certainly India will not. India will give a fight and give an answer to Pakistan. This is the right signal, right time.
All right, well, valid points, Mr. Locker. Do you really think that Donald Trump, wants to? All right, we're getting some live visuals as well. You can see images coming in of Elon Musk with the Prime Minister. In those shots, we could see that Elon Musk has gifted or presented something to the Prime Minister, a token of appreciation or a memento. And Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, in conversation with the Indian Prime Minister. You can see his kids also right there in this frame. In fact, that popular video on social media where Elon Musk is inside the Oval Office with Donald Trump, you can see his son also besides him. The Prime Minister and Elon Musk engaged in a very animated conversation at this point in time. The Prime Minister flanked by the Indian contingent, and Elon Musk with his family in the Blair House. Let me open Mr. Ray Locker, senior journalist, once again into this conversation. Well, Mr. Locker, Elon Musk is investing everywhere, and he wants to, in fact, help out the government. He wants to improve government efficiency. He wants to cut down costs, but he also wants to leverage technology. And India, obviously, is a place of interest for Elon Musk as well. Consider what we have done with our space programs, what ISRO has done by landing on the south side of the moon. There are obviously, spaces where both these countries can work together. Do you think Elon Musk and his passion for space can be a reason for a deep partnership in this segment?
Well, I think if he wants to, he can help India in that regard. I will take issue with your comment that he wants to help the United States government streamline efficiency or whatever. He's doing whatever he wants to help himself. He's a walking one-man conflict of interest. The world's richest man has no business in the Oval Office conducting business on behalf of the United States government. He's not an elected official. He has legitimate interests here and they should be listened to, but he's actually the one who's often calling the shots. He has an unelected group of teenagers and 20-somethings running around in government agencies telling them to shut down parts of the government. That's not his job. That's the job of the president and the U.S. Congress to decide how money is spent and how people get hired. And so you have this guy running amok, injecting himself into all these different things, getting the government to buy $400 million worth of his worthless cyber trucks. He has interests, and if he can help India, and India is willing to deal with all the strings that come with dealing with Elon Musk, then more power to India if it can get something out of the bargain. But I would be very reluctant to cede control over any of my government interests to Elon Musk and his various business interests.
In fact, Mr. Locker, Bernie Sanders, in fact, flagged this danger as well when he called that the American government should not be run by oligarchs, is the word that he used. But considering the fact that Elon Musk is getting so much importance, he's got a free pass to enter the White House. It's a distinct possibility that he is going to be shaping all kinds of policies.
Yeah, it's a distinct possibility. It's not only a possibility, it's a probability. It's happening. He's in there. He spent $290 million on advertising to help Trump get elected last year. So he's basically bought the control of the U.S. government for $290 million. He's going in and he's telling Trump to do various things. Trump shrugs his shoulders and says it's okay. Musk says everything is transparent, but it's not transparent. They have government officials threatening reporters for disclosing the names of some of his minions working as part of this bogus Department of Government Efficiency. It's laughable. If there's anybody in the world who can cope with it, it's Narendra Modi. He knows how to deal with people like that. But it's dangerous, and it's not the way that things should be done in this country or in any country. We're supposed to be better than that. We're supposed to have the kind of processes and systems in place to prevent the world's richest man from using the U.S. government as his plaything.
Mr. Locker, just for the sake of argument, similar accusations have also been made against Mr. George Soros, whose campaigned against India, who got the highest civilian award by none other than Joe Biden. What's the difference between these two, according to you?
Have you ever seen George Soros in the White House, in the Oval Office, basically telling the President of the United States what to do?
I've never seen any oligarch, any billionaire, doing what Elon Musk is doing.
Right. So there's the big difference. George Soros does a lot of things. He's disrupted international currency markets over the last 30, 40 years. A lot of things I don't necessarily agree with. But his involvement in things related to government is much less than what Musk is doing now. And I'm sure if I went and cataloged everything that Soros has done, I would find many things objectionable. But he's certainly never injected himself in the operations of the U.S. government in a way that Musk has done. Musk is doing something that no one has ever done before, that no elected U.S. president has ever allowed to happen.
Right. All right. Okay.
Can I just...
Yes, sir. Go on, sir. Please. Mr. Mehta, go on, sir.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that earlier also, country like India and United States, behind the curtain, the capitalists, Elon Musk is there, but earlier since Ronald Reagan, I can't tell all the history. But since then, number of people, either in Bush period or the vested interest was always there. And Mr. Soros was behind the curtain, what he was doing anti-India, not for disturbing and supporting those people who do the terrorism and all. He was helping to the terrorism. That's why I think at least it's in open. If you want a openness, then even for funding also, in India people talk about the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Adani, Ambani, what the Rahul Gandhi kind. Soros lobby was also helping to Rahul Gandhi. That's why I wanted to draw attention to our friends that if you come openly, okay, they have the interest in business, it's okay. But behind the curtain, if you decide the policies, earlier also, in the interest of the United States, the businessmen, they already had either Microsoft or the other companies are manufacturing the airlines, and aircraft manufacturers or the defense factories, the owner, they always have the best interest with the White House everywhere. And the White House, when they come with the businessmen, with the whole aircraft, with the president, any president who come to India or anywhere in the world, they go for a business. So I think one part of the business work is with the American president. Nowadays, India is also emerging as a superpower. That's why the Indian Prime Minister also went talk to with every businessman, either in India, either Maria Birla is also there, Tatas and Birlas were there in India. They also used to talk about it with the government, and they were also in the part of the parliament too, especially the Mr. Birla family. So I think these kind of, when we speak about, but Soros, you can't compare Elon Musk. Elon Musk, at least he is not helping to the terrorist people. But Soros was helping in urban Naxal, what yesterday with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Amit Shah, every day they talk about it. I think that's why for India, we think that openness should be there in any administration. They should openly say, this much amount. What we talk about the bonds, what they did, the Hindenburg report, just to damage our Indian economy. So these kind of sabotaging by the United States, when they want a good relation with India, and the people were sitting there and they're damaging a country like India, then certainly we have objection about it. So I think we need, and we hope still, we know that in democracy, some people may be more aligned with the China or with some other countries. But we have our own interest, like earlier also our guest talked about it, that India first and America first. 1 and 1, 11, not 1 and 1, 2. Now we want to speak in equality with the United States or any other country.
Mr. Locker, would you like to respond? In fact, let's also get in this piece of information that just a couple of days ago, Donald Trump also halted the US enforcement law banning overseas bribes. We've also known what's happened to Hindenburg, a company that targeted the Adani Group, one of the biggest conglomerates in India. What do you have to say about that, sir?
Well, I think dissolving the unit or that deals with bribing foreign officials is a big mistake. That should be against the law, and anything that seems to encourage corruption like that is something to be deplored. Personally, I don't know the involvement of George Soros and what he's doing. Like I said before, I think his manipulation of international currency markets has hurt a lot of different countries over the past few years. I know that many of the things that he invests in, have helped people with his open society, not charity. But I don't know all the other stuff. So if indeed it seems like he has supported terrorism, that's something to be decried and stopped. And the bottom line is people who have a lot of money like that, who aren't elected to anything, yes, they influence government policy, but they should not be allowed to run roughshod over government policy, and regardless of where they stand on the ideological spectrum.
All right, sir. Appreciate your stance on this. Group Captain Jha, so how do you look at this? Is this complicated? When oligarchs, come into the picture, and like Mr. Mehta said, that there have been capitalist forces behind every government in the world, and the only difference is that, there is transparency here, and there hasn't been transparency in the past.
Vinay, I think now India is at a stage where we should stop crying. What Hindenburg does, what Soros does. Look, there was something irregular about Adani, Ambani, something. One of the US court has issued, a warrant or something. Now, India has to be at that stage. If Prime Minister Narendra Modi says in the parliament while replying to the presidential address that there are anti-India lobbies, there are the urban Naxals who are trying to damage India. And we have been knowing about this. The Hindenburg, one of his reports will come just before the parliament session, and the entire parliament session will be wiped off. Not only that, many of the stock markets will crash. A lot of people will lose it. So all these damages we have been tolerating. What stops India to launch one investigation and put these guys, into the red list, like what happened about the Adani? He had to explain to the US courts. So similar thing now has to happen. India especially should stop trying onto these issues as well as Bangladesh. Look, Bangladesh, there is a horrific things happening there. India now expects that Trump will take a stand. Why? Why India is not taking a stand? What stops India to criticize, pass one bill criticizing Bangladesh for its anti-minority stance? What stops it? Beneath, we have seen what has happened in Afghanistan. Entire Sikh and Hindu have been totally committed 100% genocide. Was there a single condemnation passed in the Indian Parliament? No. We keep on waiting for the UN to take up this, or United States to take up this. Why India cannot? Hamas is a graded terrorist organization. Has India banned Hamas? Has India proscribed Hamas? No. I think the time has come where India is in a place where it can take such actions. You should first set your own house in the order. You should have a voice, and then the world will start speaking that voice. That is what Trump is doing. Of course, we may not be able to compare India with USA right now at this juncture, but tomorrow India is going to be third strongest economy. Thereafter, India looks at being the second most economy, and there is all possibility of there. So I think on fewer things, India should now start taking a stand, including just now what we have talking of the Hindenburg or Soros or the Bangladesh Hindus' interest somewhere else. Pakistan Hindus were 18% in 1947. Today they are less than 2%. And what is UN doing? UNSC doing? UNHRC doing?
Nothing.
Has USA done anything? No, because we have ourselves not done. The things have to start from our own house. So I think there is a need to do to this. But Vinit, just allow me another 30 seconds. Coming back to the Modi's visit to here. Look, Elon Musk has got a stake. He has been a good friend of Modi. He has been a good friend of India, because many of the Indian human resources, especially the engineers, tech guys, they are working there in USA in many of the arenas. Space is there. We already have one MOU signed with the NASA. That was, I think, 2 years back, into which the Indian scientist is going to the International Space Station right now, and they are also in the subsequent projects. India is already having a stake today in the space sector. There is no denial about it. India is looking for its own constellation of the satellites to provide internet to all parts of India. That is already on the table. ISRO is already working on to that. But in that meantime, in case if Elon Musk is able to provide, at the affordable rates, the internet to all parts of India, including the far northeast or far in the Himalaya side, well, it is welcome there. And Indian defense sector today is the one which is looking for Atmanirbhar plan. That is where Modi is going to bargain about. I was hinting you about G414 engine or MQ-9B or C, whatever it comes up there, MRCA, or we already have the Apache helicopters.
All right,
3 squadrons are there. We may get more of it.
Right,
so
sir.
India will be bargaining onto all these areas. Vinit.
All right, we have a paucity of time as well. Professor Gunaratna, how do you look at what has been discussed in the last few minutes in terms of the roles of oligarchs and influence over governments that definitely has a deep impact?
It is inevitable. The same way the Adnanis have influenced India, the Elon Musk has influenced the Americans, so have the Russian oligarchs. It is a part of doing business in the 21st century. I don't think we can move away from it. And I think that today when world leaders travel, they always take in their plane at least 50% of the delegation.
The Ambanis don't have a free pass to enter the Prime Minister's house in India. The Ambanis are not part of any governmental organization to improve efficiency. The Ambanis never contributed $300 million towards Prime Minister Modi's campaign. So there's quite a difference here.
Yes, but at the same time, today when the Indian government discuss business with foreign states, they would engage the Indian business community to play a very important role. Maybe not to the extent of what Trump has done with Elon Musk, but the private public sector partnership is a very important partnership. So if you look at even the investments that India wants to make in foreign countries, especially to thwart, say, Chinese influence, they have always invited the top Indian businessmen to assist India in that sense, but also for them to make money. So I think that we should not be too much worried about it unless they cross a certain.
All right, sir. I appreciate your sentiment. In fact, more updates will continue to pour in as the Prime Minister gets ready to meet President Donald Trump in just a few hours. We're going to keep a close eye. We'll be here overnight to take you through this all important discussion right here on NewsX. Time for us to dip into a very short break. Be right back.
Co-powered by PolicyBazaar.com. हर फैमिली होगी इंश्योर्ड।
All right, we're starting with some breaking news coming in. President's rule has been imposed in Manipur. And according to a notification by the Ministry of Home Affairs, President's rule has been imposed in Manipur is what we are learning at this point in time. Nibir Deka, my colleague, is joining us on the broadcast. Nibir, President's rule has been imposed in violence hit Manipur. And this comes a few days after Chief Minister N. Biren Singh resigned ahead of a no-confidence motion. And there was a threat by the opposition as well. And now we have the President's rule.
Well, yes, indeed. Ever since the Chief Minister N. Biren Singh has resigned, there has been sequence of events in Manipur in political nature. The MLAs in different camps have met Sambit Patra, trying to prove them that they have the majority backing of the MLAs. The names that came up were Khemchand Singh, Satyabrata Singh. They visited Sambit Patra, who is camping in Manipur right now, and he was given the in charge of Northeast as a coordinator. But from sources we got to know that there was not a single candidate there for whom a consensus was built to be the next chief minister. Firstly, secondly, amid the ongoing security situation in Manipur, wherein we have seen violence for more than 21 months and deaths of at least more than 250 people, the law and order situation has been questioned in Manipur. And thirdly, even after a new chief minister would have been appointed, the bigger question would have been reconciliation. Following the resignation of the chief minister, we saw the Kuki Zoo community groups stating that even if Biren Singh resigns, they will continue their agitation for a separate administration or a separate union territory. So the divide would still remain even after a new chief minister. So these were the factors which might have been considered before taking this decision of a president's rule, because now there would be there could be a possibility of an intensified crackdown as far as security measures are concerned. And secondly, the reconciliation efforts will have to be taken up in a very dynamic manner so that all the communities of Manipur, not just the Meitei and the Kuki, but even other communities such as Nagas and other communities, can be consulted and a common unified forum can be generated out of them so that the normalcy can be achieved in the state of Manipur. Back to you.
Nibir, thank you for that. And meanwhile, BJP in charge for Manipur, Sambit Patra, has spoken to the media after the imposition of the president's rule. Listen in.
Imposed in Manipur, what do you want to say? Sir, 2 lines. Sir,
it is suspended animation. ग्रोह भंग नहीं हुआ है, ये सस्पेंडेड एनिमेशन है.
सर, इसमें सर मणिपुर के जो निवासी हैं उनके
All right, well, we are all gearing up for that big bilateral meeting between the Prime Minister and United States President Donald J. Trump. Of course, what is going to be discussed, what is going to be achieved and concluded or negotiated is a mystery so far, but all we can do is come up with intelligent conjectures on the back of what has transpired in the last few days. We know that Donald Trump is intent on making America great again. We also know that Donald Trump is intent on imposing tariffs which are pretty high when it comes to the BRICS nation. He was upset that the de-dollarization concept was being considered by the BRICS nation. We are also aware that Donald Trump wants to stop the Ukraine-Russia war. He also wants to turn in Gaza into a tourist spot. So, of course, a lot of fiction which has been merged with reality. And the Prime Minister has, of course, as we know, landed in Washington, D.C. for this highly anticipated meeting with US President Donald Trump. This meeting, which will be the first one between both the leaders, is expected to set the agenda for the next 4 years at least. Prime Minister Modi will also meet Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, who was very impressed with the Prime Minister the last time they had this meeting. Vivek Ramaswamy, who was part of Doge and resigned later on, will also be meeting with the Prime Minister. Mike Waltz is also in queue. So what is it that makes this visit important for India? It obviously comes at the backdrop of Donald Trump's push to deport 20,000 illegal immigrants for India. While India has supported Trump's stance, the humane return of the deportees is something that will be on the agenda. Another important issue is trade after Trump has imposed tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. Donald Trump has also expressed his desire to sell defense equipment and products to India, which would be crucial for India's defense modernization. And let's also not forget that this comes as Trump administration is cracking down on US aid and also on George Soros and his network. Before this visit, the Prime Minister had met with the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and US Vice President J.D. Vance and discussed investments in nuclear energy and also artificial intelligence. So what can be expected from this big meet? What is going to be the conclusion? Is India going to hold its own like we have done for so long, or are there going to be some pain points? That's exactly what we're going to discuss with our guests for the next few hours. We'll in fact will be running up to that important meeting, which is going to be happening early morning on the 14th of Feb. Mr. Manga Anant Mula, politician, Republican Party, is joining us on the show. Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former diplomat, is also with us. Major General Rajan Kochar, defense expert, joins us on the show. Mr. Adrian Calamil, fellow at the Arabian Peninsula Institute, is with us on the broadcast as well. Dr. Sharad Kohli, senior economist, with us on the show. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is joining us on this all-important discussion. Anand Mittal, former director of Senator Mitch McConnell's office and former Capitol Hill staffer, is also joining us on the program. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking out the time. Professor Nalapat, sir, I'll begin with you. I want you to set the tone for what's about to happen in a few hours. Like I said in my opening monologue, sir, will India continue to hold its own? Something that we have done, something that we have become proficient in, and something that the world has acknowledged us for, that our diplomacy, could be friendly, yet it is independent. But Donald Trump has something else on the agenda. He's also, in fact, announced very, very recently that he is, in fact, going to be focusing on reciprocal tariffs, which are committed to make America great again. And of course, this is a trade war with a number of nations. Will India also be, caught up in these tentacles?
Look, Vineet, the fact is that the President of the United States has got a basket of issues that he has to tackle. He has to tackle the Ukraine issue. He has to tackle the issue of the US economy, and he has to tackle other matters which relate to the functioning of the White House and the presidency. And he's got a very strong test in 2026, because if he does badly in the intervening 1.5 years, then the Republicans are likely to lose control of both the Senate and the House. So that means he's going to be left with a lame duck administration for the final 2 years of his term. Now, the fact is, India under Prime Minister Modi can be of immense help in many ways. For example, the global south. For example, when we are talking in terms of the Ukraine conflict, because of his good relations with President Putin, there are many ways in which India can be helpful. And I think both Tulsi Gabbard as well as J.D. Vance, both of them are they have both met Prime Minister Modi and would have, to some extent, understood his mind and gauged his thinking. And they briefed President Trump on that. So my point is, will President Trump take a very narrow view, tariff, 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 or will he take a broader view and look at the whole gamut of issues that India is essential to, including the security of the Indo-Pacific, including security against terrorism and other matters, including, for example, ensuring the global south does not become a Chinese village, or the South China Sea does not anymore remain a Chinese lake, which is what unfortunately has become over the past 15 odd years. So I think if he looks at it from that angle, there are many issues on which he can rely on the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is very clear about many matters. For example, defense. I see immigration, of course, is not a problem. So long as they're Indian citizens, the government of India is ready to accept them. And that has been made very, very clear by no less a person than External Affairs Minister Jaishankar himself. As far as defense is concerned, if the United States defense companies were to situate some platforms in India, then they would be cost competitive. And very importantly, Vineet, we would like to have certain protocols in place, certain certain protocols to be signed, which will enable us to ensure access to the best in US technology, including in defense. The Russians are going all out to offer us the top class technology, the Su-57. It's a 5th generation aircraft. The Americans have tepidly offered us a 4.5 generation aircraft. The reality of the situation is, if we are in a position where we can argue for a 5th generation aircraft for the Navy, etc., and also for a full-fledged security relationship so that the Indo-Pacific is protected. So I think if Trump gets the big picture, he is going to be quite accommodative and reasonable. He accommodates Prime Minister Modi in some ways. He accommodates President Trump in other ways. That is the art of the deal. It's never one-sided. A one-sided deal is no deal at all. It's bound to have a very short life. So I think the question is wide angle or very narrow angle. And I would look at the next few meetings, I would say, to judge that. But if he looks at it from a wide angle, then certainly there's a lot on offer. And so far as defense is concerned, I don't think there's any problem in American defense companies situating in India and producing here as well. You can't just make everything in the United States, because then you're going to price it at a level that nobody is going to be able to afford it, least of all the US government, which is facing $38 trillion in debt. $38 trillion. And there are 18 ways in which one can describe the United States as almost bankrupt. So the question is, in what way President Trump will view this extremely important meeting with the most important partner he has in a range of issues, including peace and security. Thank you, Vinny.
Absolutely. Mr. Mittal, if you can hear me, I'll come to you now, sir. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Well, taking a leaf out of what Professor Nalapat also said, that Donald Trump is not somebody who's going to have a tunnel vision when it comes to our relationship with the Americans. He's obviously going to keep his own interest, the interest of the American people in mind. Of course, he's swearing by making America great again. We saw Elon Musk and J.D. Vance with those oversized hats in the White House just a few days ago, re-emphasizing the fact that America is a priority. But, making America a priority does not mean that India should not be one. Do you concur, sir?
Yes, that's true. I mean, the U.S. India partnership, it's not an alliance, but it's a partnership that has endured over the years through multiple administrations. We've had some bumps during the Biden administration, understandably, with the various things, the Adani case, the Pannu case, and generally the fact that the Biden admin was more on the left, and sort of did not like what they call the right-wing Indian government in general. But even then, there was a lot of friendship and amity. Prime Minister Modi was invited to a official state dinner. So I expect some of that amity to continue. Remember Howdy Modi from 2019, welcome Trump in Namaste Trump in 2020. So I expect a repeat of those kinds of shows of friendship and unity. I think on the tariff issue, it's going to be a continued bumpy road, but I think an accommodation is much more likely between India and the United States than other countries. Trump is not going to like BRICS because BRICS is really China. BRICS is really about China and Russia, and so those are not friendly and favorable conditions for America when it comes to making America great again. Same thing with the BRICS currency. I don't think India is going to accept the BRICS currency either, honestly, because that's going to be something dominated by China. And so whatever bilateral relationships are going to happen, the talks that are going to happen today, they are mostly going to be agree on defense and probably tariffs. But I don't think it's going to be as negative of a relationship as it has been with Canada and the U.S. or Mexico and the U.S. or even Europe and the U.S. Basically, every country that Trump feels is taking advantage of. Yes, he said some negative things about India when it comes to the economic relationship, but that does not mean that ideologically he does not. He recognizes somebody in Prime Minister Modi who thinks like him, who's an independent thinker. He respects people who respect him and also people who care more about their country than they care about some vague notion of international ideology, friendship and global friendship and those kind of things, which he thinks is a suspect way of cheating America on different kinds of things. India doesn't need things like USA. They don't need things like all the sort of left-wing things that Elon Musk is trying to overturn in the American government. India has no need for that. India needs defense technology. It needs critical technology. I think a lot of those kind of things are going to be the focus of the talks today. And again, I think there's going to be continued meetings like this down the line through the years, and it's going to be a much more positive relationship than it has been in the last 4 years at least.
All right, valid points. Adrian, I hope you can hear me. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
All right,
yes, I can hear you.
It's important to understand what kind of a person Donald Trump is. Let's also put that into perspective, that he's an independent thinker. He does have a set of advisors like every president and every leader does. But what has differentiated Donald Trump in terms of his presidential style, quote unquote, has been his independent thinking. And that's exactly something that India has also been known for, at least in the last 10 years, for our independent policy, regardless of what the world pressure or blocks may look like. Do you think this is perhaps creating or has created that conducive environment for, endless possibilities between these two nations?
Great question. And I've always thought that the relationship between the United States and India needed to be a lot tighter along defense policy, along economic policies. And Trump and Modi are very similar in many ways. They are independent thinkers. India, I was in the outsourcing industry, so I've been to India. I understand the country and see how it operates and how business operates and the ingenuity. And we see the same type of thing in the United States. It's always seemed to be a natural ally of ours. And on the economic front and independent thinking, with Trump, he is an independent thinker. There's no doubt about that. But if you see the people that he surrounds himself with, he's getting a lot of different views and a lot of different, it's not an echo chamber. He's getting differing viewpoints until he finally comes down with a certain policy. So I know a lot of people think he's making knee-jerk reactions here and there, but they're not. As far as the saber rattling with tariffs with other countries, I just don't see it with India. The relationship's too important. There should be focus on issues such as I would look at like reinstituting and start revisiting the IMEC corridor, which was promoted by Modi in 2023 at the G20. I would start looking at also the military aspect, the technology aspect, so that we are working in synergy and understanding that a long time ago, our focus should have been on India instead of and pushing business to India and working with India instead of pushing business to China, which ultimately has come back to hurt us and hurt India at the same time.
Absolutely, that's a solid point. Dr. Kohli, bringing you in now, of course, economically, India needs to get to that 5 trillion mark. India needs to become that third largest economy, and that is something that the Prime Minister has undertaken personally, right from Make in India to the digital revolution that India has seen and also exported to the rest of the world. Do you see synergies that India can offer to the Americans at this point in time if we are taking weaponry from them? What's at offer here from India to America?
Good evening, Vineet, and to all my fellow panelists and NewsX viewers. I think this meeting is happening in an extraordinary situation because I've never been so anticipatory on the meeting between the two leaders. There have been trips earlier as well. It's not that Prime Minister Modi is visiting America for the first time or he's meeting President Trump for the first time. But what has transpired over the last few weeks, I think this is one of the most anticipated meeting, I would say, especially with regard to the, I call the new economic situation as tarified. It's not terrified, it's tarified. So with regard to the tariffs and with regard to the deportations, with regard to the defense deal, with regard to the new geopolitical equations which are now realigning after President Trump took over. So I think it's a very, very different scenario, and Prime Minister Modi landing there at this point of time, it's a very, very crucial meeting. Yes, the message of $5 trillion economy, which is we're around the corner. We're just about probably a couple of years ago, or maybe even less, from that mark. But I think it's not about the numbers. It's about business going forward. And so that we know President Trump is basically a business person. He means business. So it's both. He is a business person and he means business in whatever he does. Well, we've been hearing about statements morning, evening coming from him. I love when Adrian said that all of them are not knee-jerk reactions. That's, some of them may not be, But then eventually it settles down to reality. And whatever he's announced about the tariff for Mexico, for Canada, for China, and then talking about, India should moderate its own tariffs. I think they are all predetermined statements. I don't think those statements came to his mind after he became president. He was quite convinced from the time he was campaigning that he has to do this, and this is unfair. We cannot be exporting something at and you impose tariffs, and we can be importing something where we're putting, like, for example, the Indian tariffs. I was taking out the average of all that we export, Vineet, to America. And, the average tariff came somewhere between 14 to 17%. And I did the same exercise for what comes from America as well. The average was 3 to 4%. So I think that's what is counting in the mind of President Trump, that there is a difference of about 10% odd in the two-way trade which happens, and he feels this should be a level playing field. And we should not forget that America today is India's largest trading partner. It's overtaken China, for that matter, $130 billion plus. Also, what's counting on President Trump's mind is, the negative trade balance which America has with India, or if I put it the other way around, India has a positive trade balance with America. I think he also wants an equalizer kind of a thing where whatever we export, we import, it should be a level playing field. I think that's what he's targeting. I don't know if that's possible or not immediately, but then that'll also be on the table. So I think it's going to be a very tough call as far as the tariffs are concerned. We saw in the Indian budget recently, which came on 1st of February, that tariffs on some of the products were reduced in anticipation of this meeting coming up. I'm sure Prime Minister Modi has gone with a very open mind. And if there is a stalemate, or if things come to a standstill where the dialogue doesn't move forward, Prime Minister Modi is quite prepared to moderate. I'm sure that he's carrying the list of items which do carry a little more lopsided tariffs than what America, exports to India and vice versa, both ways. So I think there is a tick box kind of a list which is there in his pocket, and I'm sure that will be the point of discussion on deportations. I think minus the handcuffs and the chains and a military aircraft flying to the country, we are fine with taking back the people who've gone illegitimately. I mean, no country, even if they've gone from the country, would like its citizens to be landing up somewhere without legitimate documents and without legitimate entry permits. So we're fine to take them back. I think it's the military aircraft which is not needed. They don't need to be chained. In an aircraft, you don't expect to be running around here and there. They'll obviously be landing here. We're fine with taking back those people, and we've already spoken about that. But I think we should not forget that there were days when India needed America more than America needed India. But I think times have changed with it now. America needs India as much as India needs America, if not more. I think we are living in those times. So I'm sure President Trump, whatever dialogue that happens in a few hours from now, is going to be, around that thought process. And I'm sure there's this, although I did use the word stalemate, but I'm sure it's not going to be there because the position India holds as of today is of utmost importance, whether it's global south, whether it is South Asia. Well, they're already loggerheads with China because of the trade tariffs which have been imposed. So not a very hunky-dory relationship with China. And America cannot afford to have the similar kind of relationship with India. So you need to have one very good friend out there in that part of the geography. So I think I'm looking forward very positively to this whole dialogue. The interaction is going to be very, very positive. I'm expecting a very solid defense deal, which will probably come out. I'm expecting some kind of solution on the tariffs, or some kind of compromise from both the sides, and a very forward-looking bilateral trade in the years to come. There's tremendous possibility there. We should not forget that some of the finest minds in America are Indians, whether they're CEOs or beneath.
Absolutely. Manga Anantmula, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, ma'am, appreciate you joining us. Well, taking a leaf out of what Dr. Kohli said, well, Donald Trump is surrounded by people of Indian origin. Tulsi Gabbard, Kash Patel, Mr. Ramaswamy, and of course, his recent most opponent, Kamala Harris, also half Indian. Does that have any bearing on any president? Obviously, there is a soft corner for those people who are a part of the government towards India. But the fact of the matter is that